Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Close podcast with myself, Ntsiki Mkhize, a mentor podcast focused on having conversations with entrepreneurs, investors, and women in leadership. Joining me in today's conversation is Wendy Chalmers-Mill, who is an inner shift facilitator and a business owner as well, who runs a business called Humanology and the Wisdom Witches, and a wonderful friend to me. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because I think there's so much to learn from people who have had several lessons of a life and share generously. So welcome, Wendy. Thank you so much
for joining me. Very great pleasure. It's lovely to be here and to be chatting.
Yeah. So I wanted to have this conversation with you because you have been self-employed your whole life. And I think for the people who are entrepreneurs and people who are in professions and maybe shift between consulting and then wanting to start their own thing and oscillate back and forth on what to do. I think it's great to have conversations with people who've walked the path and kind of figured it out, right?
So, do we ever figure it out?
To some degree.
Sounds good.
So I want to go back to like when you first started your career.
Okay.
And when you knew that being self-employed was the fit for you.
Okay, interesting. So I've had quite a diverse career, lots of changes and evolutions, but still always worked with people throughout my career. When I first went self-employed, it was as a result of basically heading up a mobile physio business for someone else down in Harley Street. And I realized one day that basically I was doing everything and paying money into their account. And it suddenly occurred to me, that seems a bit wrong. I could do this myself. Yeah. And there was this initial sort of, I remember the feeling of jumping into a void of unknown and, oh my God, I hope I can still get some money in the door. Because when you're having a regular salary, and this was when I was in my 20s, that sudden step to going into, although you know you can do it, there is this sort of void of I hope and this sort of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So I remember that feeling, but having done it at that time, I also remember, why the hell didn't I do it earlier?
Yeah. And I think that's often the thing with becoming an entrepreneur or being self-employed or setting up your own thing is that once it works, you're like, man, I had it in me this whole time.
Yeah.
And I should have just trusted that in me sooner. I'm quite curious about what creates the kind of people that can be self-employed, right?
Yeah.
Is there something that you can kind of look back on in your life that you go, that's what's giving you the resilience to do your own thing for this long?
I think strength of character. Yeah. I think being strong in your own sense of self and your own sense of knowing and just feeling like you have the capabilities to really do whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's just adapting that to ensure that it sits with your sort of authentic self, with your own alignment. But it is definitely to do with this sense of inner strength, or knowing that you just can cope and manage and do
and get it done,
and you do. Yeah, and I do.
You absolutely do. I want to touch on that point of authenticity. You know, one of the things that I think you do really well around the businesses that you've created is that they speak so authentically and are aligned so well with what your natural gifts and talents are. And I think for some people, it takes some time to find out what that is. And then it takes time to believe that whatever that is something that can earn you an income, you know? So I think first you're kind of going, how did you know what was the business for you? And as your different businesses have evolved over the years, how have you kind of settled on, this is my gift and talent and what I do really well in the world. And this is how I'm going to convert it into a business.
It's really interesting, Ntsiki. I have this sort of real thing about people not working to their strengths, but working to their skills.
Okay.
And for me, there's a subtle difference. We're skilled at school to do something perhaps because we get on with the teacher and we have rapport in that subject. But we're born with innate strengths. And very often we go off course because life, external things in life take us on this journey of, well, I'm quite skilled at this, I've learned how to do it, and therefore perhaps that's the journey I should go in my life. But their strengths lie somewhere else.
Yeah.
And when your strengths align, you are on the path of being authentic to what your inner self wants. But I feel that many people in life end up learning a skill and going into that as a career path. School, they were good at art, but in fact, or they're good at art, but they liked the maths teacher better. Ended up doing science instead of being creative with the art. And then university has the same sort of ongoing process, and we're sort of programmed in a way into that path of what expectations are when you've done a degree, when you've done school. So for me, I was lucky because my strengths were people and working with people. And even although I did train and have a skill set in that area, I've evolved away from my learnings, but still stuck with the people aspect of what I do. So I think it's very much between, are you aligned with your inner purpose, your strengths, your core sort of stuff, or have you been taken in the skill set?
Yeah.
That's where I think people go off track.
They do. But it's hard because I think it's that, because when you say people, it's like, how do you then find the gap where this is what I do to serve people?
Yeah.
And this is the value that I add that makes people confident or comfortable to, pay in exchange for that, and then I think the confidence for asking, saying, I know how to create internal shift. Let's work together and there'll be results.
And I think that's an energy exchange.
Yeah.
When you're aligned to yourself, when you're really heartfelt in what you do, when you're authentic, you have a sense of worth, both of what you are internally and what you can offer to others. And then it's an energy exchange, which is money.
Yeah.
And I don't believe any entrepreneur is fantastically comfortable with money. I think it's a tool that we use as an energy exchange. And certainly I don't believe that I'm particularly fantastic with money, but my life and what I've done with it with regard to my work has always fed a passion.
Yeah.
And that's where I believe my wellness and my wholeness and my sense of happiness has been derived from, not from suddenly making multi-million pounds, but more from I'm aligned to really wanting to do this. It's a passion and it sits really comfortably within me, and I get a lot of joy from the catalytic effect that I can have with other people. Yeah.
I love that. I like that use of phrase. Money is an energy exchange. I like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So you've created interesting pockets for any exchange. One is Humanology and one is Wisdom Riches.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about Humanology and how you've been able to discover and how you work with individuals to create shift.
Okay. So my qualification is I'm a physiotherapist and I worked in occupational health originally. And that sort of evolved into me realizing that many people who are at work can end up with musculoskeletal type injuries, but they're more related to the psychology of how they feel about their workplace.
Yes.
And so the business evolved more into understanding workplaces, understanding the dynamics, the social aspects, and how people communicated at work and how it made people feel. And that then resulted in physical ailment.
Yeah.
And that was how what was Positive Performance and is now the Humanology business started. It was about going into organizations and offering advice on what they could do to ensure their staff were happy. I mean, and happy seems a very, business doesn't associate with happiness.
Yeah, but people do need it.
Yes.
And I mean, there's really good research by Sean Acorn who talks about happiness as your brain being positive and the fact that people do perform better when they are happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when people are positive and enthusiastic and happy, they're productive. There's far less illness, there's far less ill health, they concentrate more, there's more blood flow, there's more wellness, and the whole thing becomes an evolving, faster paced business when your staff are motivated and happy. So that was how the Humanology business evolved. And I went into organizations and I trained on 4 quadrants. The first one being authentic leadership, which was all about not learning how to be a leader, but tuning into your innate gifts.
Yeah.
The second one was about communication. So a passion of mine is communication, how we communicate externally and internally, and how that affects us and the dynamics around about us. And then when we have covered both the authentic leadership and the communication, it then allows for resilience to become more predominant, and as a result, a well fit and productive company.
Yeah.
So that's the Humanology business. It's a cyclical business of ensuring that all those four aspects are linked. After doing physio, I have done corporate coaching and NLP and other sort of additional learnings, but much of what I offer is experiential and what works and what moves people to feel that they want to be at work and they're enthusiastic and they're happy and they're in the right place. So,
what is that for you, or like for any entrepreneur who's watching that goes like, I love what I do. There's great passion here, but it can't really be exhausting. I'm wearing all these hats, and sometimes just the resilience or staying power or the grit that I need to do what I do just isn't there. From a humanology perspective, are there things internal and innate in us that one can tap into that can kind of give you that extra length of rope to keep going?
I think there's no truer phrase than don't burn the candle at both ends. If you are offering a lot of energy in a workplace, then, and that's external, that's giving, that's, working, although it sits within your sort of core being, it still can be tiresome because there's still external things that are going to happen that pull you and tire you. You need to be aware of that, or it's good to be aware of that, and in the evening to recharge the batteries in whatever you feel that is. I talk about active and passive relaxation. Active being tuning into the body, maybe doing some meditation, maybe doing some massage, things that we're actually tuning into the body, and passive being things we enjoy, going to the cinema, reading a book, things that take us out of our headspace.
Love that.
So it's about coming out of the busyness of what's been happening in the head and just aligning into the whole heart space and recharging the batteries. I don't necessarily think people are great at that because if you're busy at work, you tend to come home and then you can carry that frantic energy. So it's being mindful of that.
It's a deliberate effort to say that I'm going to make the time to unplug and to consciously relax or make room for relaxation.
I think that's absolutely necessary today. We are not human doings, we're human beings.
One of my favorite phrases.
Being that is important, not doing. And many, many people end up being human doings. Yeah.
Other ways that you help people be human beings is through wisdom riches, which I had the wonderful pleasure of kind of watching that come to life during, just before the pandemic, actually, when I was in Glasgow studying, and then, being able to be part of some sessions when I went back to South Africa. And it's kind of taken on a whole life 3 years later. I want to talk about that a little bit and kind of how you've seen more people gravitate towards having an interest in their own healing and being tuned into themselves, and what that means for how we show up as better humans in the world.
Well, that's not a small question. So let me start as to why the Wisdom Witch has evolved. During lockdown, well, before that, actually, I'd come across 3 or 4 other coaches, and we were all self-employed, and we said, why don't we once a month get together and cross-fertilize ideas and shoot the breeze and see where we're at and just learn from each other and our experiences. So as 4 entrepreneurs, it was a great way of mentoring each other almost. And then our first meeting was booked, and what happened was lockdown. So it never evolved into being a sort of cross-fertilization of ideas. It evolved into us being online and thinking with each other, what could we do that would use our services when we can't go out and see people in the corporate world. And what came about was this online forum where people that were anxious or fearful or isolated had a place they could go and discuss with other people how they were feeling and ask questions from the coaches. So the collective was coaches who came together and were there as a body of inverted commas wisdom to offer to those who felt they needed it. And it really just evolved from there. It's had a couple of different incarnations with different collectives, different people, with myself driving it. And where we are now with it is it's a group of holistic practitioners from many walks of life who come together and offer learning themes once a week, and people come on to the learning forums and get, well, it's been said, some people talk about it as an online counselling service, which I don't particularly like, because it's more about moving forward and growing. And I think COVID was the turning point for people going into that space. I think this whole aspect of lockdown and being put in a situation that was so abnormal to what we're used to really made people think and perhaps pivot, reset, decide where their values in life were and what was important to them. And that was really what I think drove the Wisdom Witches to become what it is now, which is a membership organisation, and people can come on the forums free each week with nominal cost. And we also run in-person events to supplement the online forums. And it's wonderful because when we do the wellness retreats, people have huge shifts in those retreats, but then they have the handhold weekly afterwards of the forums to continue on their journey. And I'm so passionate about people growing, and learning every day to be whole. Because I think there's an awful lot of fragmented people around with all their learned beliefs and all their patternings that keep playing in their lives today, when they don't realize they can let that go and they can live now, presently, mindfully, and grow from that place of now into where they want to be, rather than be held back or held up by programs and learned behaviors and all the stuff that perhaps sits from their past that they've never necessarily recognized. That's not to say that I think people need to go back to their past and unhash it all. I'm very much one of these people that thinks you can let that go. You can understand it, let it go and move, rather than uproot it. So.
And even if there's no understanding, you can just be like, there's no explanation for why that happened.
Indeed.
But I
can leave it.
I can let it go and keep forward from here. What do you think is, I don't know if I should call it a fear or an inhibitor, but what keeps a lot of people from facing kind of the things that are fragmented?
Fear. I mean, fear.
Yeah.
Fear is your greatest instinct. It's fear of tackling or going to that place that you may feel uncomfortable in. So it really always comes back to that place of fear and the unknown, or the what if I go there. I'm wondering,
I think maybe there might be some people who are going, okay, these are the gifts and the talents that I have, these are the skills that I have, and I'd like to work with people in this way, but I have no idea where to start, so even finding the right kind of clients, right? And I know somebody might be going, Wendy, give me a formula. But what I found to be very interesting is that you quite radiate what you want, and then your clients find you. Is there an art to that? Is there a trick to that?
No, I think that's just being comfortable in yourself. I think when you're in a we can go quite woo-woo here and talk about in a higher vibrational state, but when you're in that energy zone of being passionate about what you do, you're right, you radiate it. You walk into a room, people are attracted to you, people want to speak to you, because you're happy and joyful in what you do. And for me, I think in business, it's not so much about what you know, it's about knowing yourself and how that radiates to people that you then attract into your space. Because business is about, I believe, attracting what you want rather than working and swimming upstream to get it. I did
striving really hard.
So I did a session recently on the Wisdom Witch about flow, and we talked a bit about strengths and skills, and I was saying, sometimes when you let go and you are the best version of yourself, and you are radiating that sense of that I'm happy what I'm doing, and I get joy out of it. Things, just as you've said, they just come to you. It just if you let go of the work and you just become whole in yourself and enjoy what you do, stuff just slowly starts to come to you.
And having patience for that and not shifting out of alignment.
Yes.
And it's happening.
I think swimming upstream, if you're having to work all the time and it's an effort, to me that means something's not aligned. Yeah I think that's where I would say more.
One of the things we love to talk about at the close is times in your life when you've been able to close a big deal or an opportunity. Looking back, whether it's Humanology or the Wisdom Riches or something that happened prior to that. I know you exited a business in your early 20s. What's one highlight over your career that you can think of that was a close moment for you? And how were you able to bring that to a close?
It's funny. This is a particular highlight. During the time I had Positive Performance, the precursor to the Humanology business. I was at and this very much sits with what we've been talking about me as a person. I was at an event in one of the down in London when I had the business in London, and it was on repetitive strain injury, occupational injury. And they had 4 inverted commas experts on the stage talking about RSI at the time. And it was very predominant. There was a lot of legal stuff going on and a lot of litigation surrounding it. And I kept asking the panel of experts questions because it was really sat sweetly with me. I'd written a book about RSI and it was sort of my sweet spot. And the experts kept giving me politicians' answers. And
get to a good answer.
Yes, and I was getting a little frustrated. Anyway, when it finished, the editor of the House of Commons, Hansard, came up to me and he said, it appears like you know more about this subject than the panel does. Would you like to come in and have a chat? Because we have a lot of incidents of occupational ill health and high absenteeism rate. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I went into the House of Commons and had a chat and I wrote a proposal. I'll never forget this. Wrote a proposal and I got the proposal back with them saying, yes, we would like to work with you, but red pen marks all the way through my proposal because one of my weaknesses is English grammar and this was the editor of Hansard. So it just shows you that you don't need to be perfect in the areas that you're weak, but be strong in the areas you're strong. And my strength was my ability to communicate, to question, to talk and ask the panel on the stage what they were talking about. Anyway, 26 years later, I was still with the House of Commons.
Lovely.
And
That's
it
an excellent
moved.
close.
It moved with different departments from Hansard into different departments, and it was very much about addressing risk in the workplace and looking at potential ways in which they could improve their environment to minimize absenteeism. So yeah,
that's a great one. I love that. I love that, and I like that emphasis on it's who you are, right?
Yes.
And playing and very much leaning into your strengths and your giftings. I love that. I want to wrap up our conversation talking about motherhood. So I think I know within Mentor, for example, we have, it's a community for women, but we also have moms and we also have single moms, right?
Yep.
And I think across your career, whether you're self-employed, growing a business or a professional, there's different challenges that are present with different life stages. So you started your businesses or being self-employed with small children, and now you're an empty nester. So I'm curious to know about what has that journey been like, and what are some of the challenges that you faced throughout the different seasons of raising your boys by yourself?
So I was self-employed before I was a mum.
Yeah.
So I started, and then I got married and was obviously with my husband to begin with. I had 3 children under 3 years old, so it was quite 3 under 3. 3 under 3. It was quite
a business,
and a business at the time. I can barely remember the early years either. I seem to manage.
You managed.
I had help. I had if I was going out, because sometimes my business would be away overnight, doing training or going to clients overnight. And I would have, I didn't have family around about at that point because I was in London and my family are in Scotland. So I had au pairs that I brought in to help if I was away. And my family life was the most important part.
Yeah.
You know, although I loved my business, it was being a mum was really how I learned the most about myself, and my wisdoms as to where I am now was as a result of my learnings as a mum. So yes, we moved back up to Scotland when I was pregnant with my youngest, actually, and then separated from my husband shortly afterwards. And I suppose just making sure that you've got support structure in place, a good support structure that you feel really comfortable with, was the key to being able to continue with the business, to be a mum, a full-time mum, although full-time, part-time, you're running a business. It's not like, so I could work the business and the business hours round about being a mum, and I could have the support structures in place when that needed to happen. And now the boys are all grown up and flown the nest, and 2 of them emigrating to Canada, one of them still in Edinburgh here, hopefully he stays here. And I find myself with more time to cover different things. The Humanology business, we've started an e-learning package on wellness, which I would like to just happen in the background. And you and I met when we were doing TEDx speaking. I'd like to do more speaking gigs because I really enjoy promoting this whole idea of being the best version of yourself, and the wisdom, which is a real passion. Just being able to act as a catalyst for people to really change from a place of not being whole, sometimes a place of trauma, sometimes a place of unhappiness, through to the connected group that we have, through to connecting with each other and connecting with self and connecting with the nature and everything else. I love it.
I love that so much. I want to know about mindset. So you spoke about having help, but I think sometimes it's your own innate resilience or what's happening internally. What were you doing for your own self-care throughout those years to kind of manage a business and manage 3 under 3 and
initially I don't remember necessarily being particularly tuned into having time for myself, and I think I've only grown into this place of really understanding the wholeness of my being in the latter 10 years, 10 years. Initially, I don't remember what I talked about, the balance. I think I just got joy when joy was available to me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
As a mum, loved the whole aspect of the joyfulness of being a mum, and I think that fills your batteries. The joy and the gratitude for being able to be a mum. Some people don't have as much luck, or so. I don't remember the initial period of thinking, right, I need to go and have a meditation or go for a swim, but there was just joy around in being a mum, and I think that was what supplemented the times when it was not as easy. I actually found it very easy being a mum with 3 boys under 3. I didn't want to.
It fits quite well with the kind of person that you are. It's like, they're like, yeah, she's a 3 boys kind of mom. Let's go. I'm thinking about moms who are going, okay, that's wonderful, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid about, can my gifts be enough to provide and, see them through school and whatever the needs that they have. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice on that?
Yeah, that's internal dialogue.
Yeah.
So that's the internal dialogue. The more you give yourself the possibility of not being able to, or fear, or holding yourself back, or limiting yourself, or putting limiting beliefs there, the more it's likely to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm one of these people that believes, if you speak to yourself and you affirm within yourself what you want in life and what you want to do and be, it will happen, because you're creating that with the energy that you are mixing internally and then projecting externally. So if you tell yourself the story of being afraid and I don't know if I can, and will I cope, all that you're doing is setting the limiting beliefs and playing them in your unconscious mind, which then become conscious thought.
Yeah.
So it's changing that dialogue internally to I can, I will, and I am.
I love that. I can, I will, and I am. I want to wrap it up with your power, your superpower. So what is the one thing when Wendy walks into a room that helps you close?
My personality.
Yeah.
It's my personality. It's people, it's loving people and being interested in people and being and wanting to serve. Yeah. So yeah, that's my superpower. I love that. If there's such a thing.
No, and I think having met you at an event and then just gotten to know you and become friends, it's definitely something that draws you in. It's like if I see you in a room, I'm like, I want to go talk to her. I don't know what her story is, but I want
that
to.
Worked both ways. That was the attraction, I think, both ways. Because when you're at a networking meeting or you're at a business meeting, there are certain people you're drawn to.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's one of the things that I maybe have as a superpower. I don't know.
You have a beautiful aura. And I was drawn to have a conversation with you then. I was drawn to have this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us on The Close.
Pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And that wraps up this edition of The Close. Stay tuned for more insightful conversations with entrepreneurs, investors, and women in leadership here on The Close. Awesome. Thank you so much.